Morbid Facts, Part 774. While on his way to Toronto to film the second season of Gen V in March of 2024, actor Chance Perdomo tragically died in a single-vehicle motorcycle crash at just 27 years old. Authorities confirmed no other vehicles were involved, but never released the exact location, cause of the crash, weather condition, or road details, leaving the true circumstances unknown. Because he died alone, there were no public witnesses and no full incident report, sparking endless speculation among fans. Eerily, just days before the accident, he posted a photo of his motorcycle on Instagram, with the ominous caption, "The final calm before the storm." His death impacted Gen V so heavily that production was postponed, and instead of recasting his character, the writers rewrote the entire season around his absence, a rare move that shows just how important and irreplaceable he was as an actor. In 1996, a stray mother cat in New York City became famous for performing one of the most heroic acts in animal rescue history. When the abandoned garage she and her newborn kittens were living in caught fire, she ran through the flames 5 separate times, carrying each kitten out one by one. By the time she saved the last one, her eyes were blistered shut, her ears and paws were burned, and her fur was scorched. But she touched each kitten with her nose to make sure they were all alive before collapsing unconscious. Nicknamed Scarlet, she later recovered at a veterinary hospital and was reunited with her kittens, all of whom survived. The story went viral worldwide, and the mother cat and all 5 of her babies were eventually adopted into loving homes.
One advantage with the airships is the fact that you wouldn't need a runway. You know, they could dock these things, and that's why people start to look at some of these old buildings and some of these towers. Were they meant for docking an airship, and then they would get into the building from the ship? What they try to show you with modern blimps is you have this big old balloon thing, and then you have like this tiny little carriage under it. Most of the structure of the blimp is just where gas is at. And then you have like a tiny little cockpit that everyone rides in. But if you see like the diagrams of these old airships, you could move all in and out of there. You can imagine would be like a floating cruise ship. So as soon as you get on, you kick your feet up, you go get something to eat, and you go hang out and have a cocktail if that's your deal. And then you can kind of hang out and look out the window and see all the cool stuff. It seems like a more elegant, more sophisticated way to travel. I would be all about that. Like, yeah, could you imagine if you were just going, okay, we're going to fly across America, go from New York to LA, and you're not in a rush because part of the journey is actually, this is fun.
Yeah.
But traveling's not like that today. But we're the advanced ones.
You might know the anti-Palestinian pro-Israel rapper Azalea Banks. Well, I'm not kidding. It only took her less than 1 week in Israel for her to say she wants to leave now and she understands why people support Palestine. Not only that, she goes on to say how Palestinians have more Semitic DNA than the Israelis. This all started because while she's in Israel, she went on social media stating that blacks and Arabs are the true Israelites. This made Israelis very upset with her for, quote, denying Ashkenazi Jews Israelite heritage. She even went on to remove the Hebrew spelling of her name on X. Keep in mind, it's interesting she even became supportive of Israel because back in 2018, she visited Israel, and after her time in Israel in 2018, she stated, quote, y'all country is nuts. US rapper Azalea Banks vows to, quote, never ever visit Israel again. Back in 2018, Banks went on a tweet storm about the racism and rudeness she said she experienced while in Israel for her concert in Tel Aviv. Well, look how the tables have turned for rapper Azalea Banks.
So Israel has not been following the ceasefire at all. Israeli soldiers have attacked people in Gaza each day. I've censored this image because it contains the bodies of 7 children. They fired on a civilian vehicle. They fired a tank in the Al Zaytun neighborhood, which is in the southeast of Gaza City. The civil defense chief of Gaza has said that nothing has changed except that the bloodshed has decreased. It's slowed. And he's calling on the world to take real action to end the suffering of the sector's residents. For war does not end with the silencing of the cannons, but with the return of life and dignity.
What just happened in Kenya is insane. At least 4 people are dead and dozens more were injured after police fired gunshots and tear gas into crowds yesterday at a football stadium in Nairobi. Now, the people were at that stadium to mourn the death of a former Prime Minister, Raila Odinga, during a public viewing of his body. And if the footage from above wasn't crazy enough, people were actually filming from in the crowd of their experience at the freaking Kenya Games. Bro, someone even commented that this was some red light, green light type. Reports say that police resorted to violence because the crowds were trying to force their way into the VIP area where Odinga's body was kept. According to local media, some allegedly even began throwing chairs and stones at security. But regardless of the circumstances, being killed at a public viewing ceremony is wild. Now, it is still unclear if the police used live ammunition or if the deaths were from being shot. But the BBC reported the city's mortuary saw 3 bodies being brought in with gunshot wounds. A 7-day period of mourning in Kenya has been declared.
It was written off as extinct. Now, after 700,000 years, Iran's Taftan volcano has started to rise. Satellite radar confirmed 9 centimeters of ground uplift between July 2023 and May 2024. The pressure source sits about 600 meters below the surface. No earthquake caused it, no rainfall. The change started from inside. Gas vents opened in January. 4 emissions followed through late May, the strongest pushing sulfur gas 50 kilometers downwind. The uplift stopped, but the surface never dropped back. Pressure remains locked beneath the summit. Researchers classify it as spontaneous unrest, the first confirmed reactivation of Taftan. The deep magma body lies several kilometers down, but a sealed hydrothermal layer above is now under stress. If that cap fails, the release will be fast and violent. And Taftan isn't alone. Krasheninnikov in Russia erupted after 5 centuries of silence. Iceland's Reykjanes belt fractured and erupted after 800 years. Edgecumbe in Alaska, Alade in the Kurils, Canlaon in the Philippines. each showing new gas, heat, and deformation. Volcanoes, once dismissed as dormant, are building pressure across multiple arcs at the same time. Tectonic stress, shifting crustal weight, and mantle movement are aligning in a single period. The pattern is accelerating. The planet's balance is changing. Dormant is turning active. The Earth is entering a dangerous stage.
There was a 5.0 magnitude earthquake in Alaska today, just days after a typhoon ravaged that same area. If you've been following me for a while, you know that for the past few months, I've been talking about all these earthquakes happening in Alaska and the west coast of the United States. So this earthquake that hit Alaska today in the same area devastated by a typhoon actually isn't that big of a shock, because Alaska's been getting hit by earthquakes of various degrees over the past few months on a regular basis. And this leads me to something else. An area called the Ring of Fire, which is basically a series of volcanoes, dormant and active, that start in South America, go all the way up through North America, right through Alaska where those earthquakes are hitting, over to Russia, down to Asia, even over to Australia. This whole area has been active with earthquakes for over the past year now. I'm not saying something big is definitely going to happen, but it's a little suspicious. Okay, Boosties, I just wanted to share this with you. Shabadoo.
Scientology is a family-destroying, human trafficking cult funded by celebrities. I'm Jenna Miscavige. My uncle's a leader of Scientology, and I escaped when I was 22. This is Flavio Lugli, pictured here with the late Kirstie Alley. His parents have begged Scientology for 10 years to let them speak to him. They recently learned that he has a serious medical condition, and they just want to make sure that he's okay. Flavio works for Scientology at their base in Clearwater, Florida, and I knew him when I worked there too. But in Scientology's most dedicated group where he works, there's no health insurance, and they believe the mind can heal the body. That belief has led to many people being denied life-saving medications, with tragic results. His parents' only crime was leaving Scientology and speaking about what happened to them, and their punishment is Scientology's policy of disconnection, with Scientology forcing their son to cut off all contact from them. Every week, ex-members and others protest in Clearwater, Florida, handing out flyers begging Scientologists to pass a message to Flavio, that his parents love him and they just want to make sure that he's okay. And every week, John Travolta drives right past them to receive his Scientology counseling. And Flavio delivers this counseling to its celebrity members. This is the type of thing that John Travolta is directly funding by being a paying Scientologist. This is what Scientology does to families, and its celebrities fund it.
What topic is no one talking about now that historians will study in the future?
Artificial scarcity. It's a lie. We don't have scarcity. We actually have relative abundance. A lot of modern poverty is totally manufactured. We have the resources, the infrastructure, and the technology to clothe, house, feed, medically care for, and educate every single human being alive. I mean, the United States and Europe alone generate enough food waste to feed the hungry of the world. We don't have a shortage issue. We have a resource distribution and management issue. Because you know what effective resource management doesn't do? It doesn't create a lot of multi-billionaires. You know what does? Scarcity. Controlling access to resources by destabilizing the homes and the lives of the people that actually own them, inflating prices and devaluing labor, which is human time, effort, and energy, which is essentially human life. Imagine that. We have a system responsible for governing human life that systematically devalues human life and favors creating yachts and jets and private islands for a handful of people. And not even really that. These people could have 1/100th of their current wealth and still have yachts and jets and private islands. At a certain point, growing wealth inequality became less about having enough to pursue happiness and success and more about having enough to maintain control over the system itself to prevent it from evolving into something that actually makes sense. I would hope that the people in the future have the sense to look back with a respectable amount of shame and embarrassment and perhaps morbid curiosity as to how we allowed this to go on for as long as we did. Because if they don't do that, if we don't eventually turn human society into an environment designed for human beings to grow and thrive and prosper within, then what's the point of having a society at all?
Secretary of Education Linda McMahon has declared that the shutdown proves that the Department of Education is no longer needed. Wow, Linda, that is some solid logic. I'll tell you what. We interrupt this programming to bring you a special report. We're getting word that after observing children on summer vacation, Secretary of Education Linda McMahon has declared that that proves that school is no longer needed. Because that's how that works. We'll have all the updates for you right here. This just in, after spending an incredible 12 hours straight wide awake, a record for 77-year-olds everywhere, Secretary of Education Linda McMahon has determined that sleep is no longer strictly necessary. When asked if this meant Americans could expect a forthcoming ban or simply updated guidance, officials said they would sleep on it. Breaking news, after surviving an entire afternoon without snackies, Secretary of Education Linda McMahon declares food an egregious form of waste, fraud, possibly even proof, as they say, is in the pudding. More at dinner time.
Man, it just doesn't make sense. I swear it doesn't make sense. Because their promises are, we want you to flourish, sustainability, equality, equity, and so on. But in reality, what they do is psychological warfare, poisoning, wars, whatever it is, whatever do, it's the exact opposite of what they advertise. You see, when one person is honest, truth, it's a lot easier to believe. Truth, it is a lot easier to believe, and it's a lot easier to deliver it. But what they do, this is how you know it's all manipulation. What they do, they've built this language that only they understand mostly, this legalese stuff, because they know they lie. They sell us lies with beautiful words. They lie. I'm telling you.
Let me tell you something about the Bradley Impact Fund, because people hear that name and they just think it's a charity, but it is not. It's a political bank for billionaires, a place where the rich can dump their money, write it off on taxes, and quietly fund the same culture wars they pretend to have nothing to do with. They call it principled philanthropy, and it sounds wholesome. But what it really means is protecting white conservative power, all under the cover of generosity. They say it's about restoring American values and defending liberty, which translation just means keeping the same people in control that have always been in control. They're not helping communities, they're shaping politics. And because they're a donor-advised fund, the people writing those huge checks never have to put their names on them. Since 2014, they pulled in well over $100 million that we know of, and pushed it straight through the veins of America's far-right infrastructure. Groups like Turning Point USA, the Heritage Foundation, Alliance Defending Freedom, those same organization writing model bills banning DEI, policing classrooms and attacking reproductive rights, they're not grassroots, y'all, they are financed. And this is where a lot of that money comes from. They call it charity, but it's really policy laundering, turning ideology into legislation and pretending that it came from the people. Now look who's running it. John Beagle, Gabe Conger, Philip Prange, Stephen Einhorn, Patrick English, James Arthur Pope, Roger Ream, all white, all wealthy, all connected to the same web, the Bradley Foundation, the Koch network, and the donors who have been engineering American politics from behind the curtain for decades. But here's the real trick. Just like Rockbridge, this fund is built to outlive them. When they die, the money doesn't stop. Donor-advised funds don't expire. That wealth just keeps moving generation to generation, financing the same old fight against progress. So if you go on their website, it's almost poetic how predictable it actually is. A wall of white faces, and only 2 people of color. Pinder Singh and Sherry Street. They're front and center because nothing says I'm not racist, like adding a brown man and a black woman to the board photo. That's not diversity, that is straight up decoration. They're insulting our intelligence. Jeez, man. Because this is how white institutions buy credibility. All while their money funds the same systems that harm the people they parade around as proof that they've changed. If this was really about faith and freedom, wouldn't the money flow to the communities that need it? Not to organizations trying to erase the very history that these communities were built on. The Bradley Impact Fund works hand in hand with the Lyndon Harry Bradley Foundation, one of the biggest conservative funders in the country. They call what they do high impact giving. Translation, political money disguised as philanthropy. So here's how it works. A billionaire drops a few million into a fund, and then Bradley quietly distributes the grant to whichever far-right group needs a boost that year. And because it's structured as charity, it all looks legal. It's the cleanest way to move dirty money you've ever seen. So yeah, they call it the Bradley Impact Fund, but the only impact they're making is preserving the system that built them. They bankroll the think tanks, the preachers, the media, the politicians, and then act shocked at the chaos that they created. This isn't about faith, this is about funding control. It's not about liberty, it's about legacy. White, wealthy, and untouched. And if you sit still long enough and just watch, they'll show you exactly who they are.
So there is literally a civil war breaking out in every single definition there is as the cartel puts bounties on ICE agents. And that comes directly from our government, and that's not even the worst of it. We'll get into the whole different bounties and stuff in a minute, but at the same time, we have President Maduro coming out of Venezuela, obviously, saying that they are at war with the CIA. The fact that they're using people in the US against the US shows just how dangerous this really is. I mean, literally, Trump's already sent B-52 bombers to their coastline, and I believe 10,000 service members right now as we speak. And now we have basically children posting these videos. 50,000 for a high-level execution, 2,000 for intelligence gathering, and 5 to 10,000 for non-lethal kidnapping. Y'all, this is absolutely insane. And allegedly, I don't know if this is true or not, allegedly Maduro tried to make a deal with the president saying that if you cancel your alliance, or I want to say alliance, but like if you cancel your foreign diplomatic stance with China and Russia, then he will allow them, oil and stuff like that. And when we talk about Maduro, I think it's really important to remember he was just talking about arming every single citizen in Venezuela in case of any kind of land invasion. And by the way, land invasion seems to be on the table. And politically speaking here, we have both sides fueling the fire and the chaos happening in the United States. I'm watching this very closely and I'll update y'all later.
So this is pretty scary. I've gotten together with 5 different creators now, right? Ever since we all updated the last update on TikTok, there's been some sketchy ass down with our devices. Not that I think it necessarily matters, but all of our accounts have over 600K followers. So, obviously the algorithm works in our favor to some sense. Anyways, ever since we downloaded the last update on TikTok, a lot of sketchy been happening to primarily our phones, but also other devices that we have as well. And I discovered that when I was making a video specifically about Israel, okay, let's keep that in mind. I'm going to make that very clear here, as well as 2 other members of our team when they were making videos throughout the last couple of days of Israel as well, we have been recorded. We also discovered that there have been major viruses on our devices. I don't about cybersecurity, you know what I mean? I have people that do that for me. They know what the doing. Let's just call them tech experts that really know how to code, you feel me? And they discovered that out of 5 of us, 12 of our devices were somehow hacked and had Pegasus software downloaded on them. My computer, my phone, their iPads, their laptops, all of their somehow, some way had Pegasus software downloaded on them. That's scary as you know what Pegasus is? These are 0-click attacks. You know how many people probably aren't even aware of this happening to them? And this started happening after you-know-who got involved in the TikTok deal. I'm not going to say their name officially, but let's just say that their name starts with an O. When I chose 2 days ago to block them on TikTok, my entire algorithm shifted. I'm starting to see content about No Kings now. I'm starting to see more content about Gaza. It's actually insane. But people, if you know any tech experts, please let them do a full rundown on all of your devices. With the way the AI is nowadays, I am not taking any motherfucking risk. Just imagine, right? Your face on another body doing something very specific. And we're just being 100% realistic here. The same exact individuals of which are responsible for creating that technology are definitely not the same motherfucking people or anything. I will be collecting evidence on all this as much as I possibly can. So if anybody else discovers anything, please hit me up in the DMs and let me know.
And press something like Neuralink to augment human intelligence and improve the symbiosis with AI, that we effectively become maybe one with the AI.
Time to wake up and to smell the technique take over. Yes, I am a human being, and I just want to help mankind. I care about mankind. I just care so much about mankind, and we need to have the chip to the frontal lobe for our symbiosis with artificial intelligence. Yes, I am a human, but also an alien.
Oh yeah, he's a little strange, that one. But, he shall get the chip done right to the frontal lobe, just in time for the golden age to be ushered in.
Now, yes, I get it. I understand those are terrible. It's part of the stick. Okay, so just bear with me here. Just trying to have some fun. But now, with that being said, I find it all very interesting that we had this news coming out today, just with all this talk about the Beast system. How fitting we have Mr. Beast filing a trademark to launch his own bank. Where, as we can see right here, the organization will be called Mr. Beast Financial. I wonder if there's going to be a mark included with this Beast financial system. Interesting. Again, just something I'm finding very, symbolic. The filing was submitted on an intent to use basis, which under trademark law means there are genuine plans to bring this to life. Bring it to life, you don't say. Very interesting verbiage. Since we're talking about the Beast system being constructed right in front of our eyes, we had this coming out yesterday, or the day before, the 14th, BlackRock to develop their own technology for tokenization of assets. Say goodbye to privacy. Bye-bye. For now, today, we also have more news coming from BlackRock, where they are set to unveil a Genius Act-aligned money market fund designed for stablecoin issuers. Wouldn't that make a wild Mr. Beast episode? On today's challenge, I'm here with Larry Fink, CEO of BlackRock, and we are going to see how many people will take a mark straight to their forehead, straight to their frontal lobe, to see if they can access their finances. That sounds like a fun challenge, right? Well, now, since we're on the topic of technology, AI, and the Beast system, I felt like I should show you this one right here, where a study has shown that being rude to AI chatbots results in more accurate answers. Whereas we can see researchers at Pennsylvania State University found that impolite prompts consistently outperform polite ones. Well, isn't that just great programming and conditioning for the youth? So absolutely done. Now, again, staying on the topic of AI, I found this one very interesting right here, where Major General William Hank Taylor, wow, 3 first names. How about that one? The commanding general of the U.S. 8th Army stationed in South Korea revealed that he uses ChatGPT to assist in making key command decisions, influencing choices that impact thousands of troops. Isn't that lovely? I've been trying to tell you guys, and I will continue to beat this dead horse. The end goal, the end game is AI governance, which is Antichrist intelligence governance, aka the Beast system. But now let's move away from the AI topic and go and see how the peace in the Middle East is looking. Oh, well, doesn't look too good right here. As we can see, Israeli strikes across southern Lebanon tonight. Don't you just love peace? Of course, again, as we all knew that this peace deal was going to be short-lived. The honeymoon phase seems to be wearing off already. A couple days, go figure, where Mr. Golden Dawn says that if Hamas continues taking people out, that, quote, we will have to go in and take them out. Or then we saw Bibi holding a security cabinet meeting today after Hamas delayed handing over hostages' bodies. Who saw this one coming? Now in some other peaceful rainbows and butterfly news, we saw Ukraine imposing nationwide power cutoffs after Russian strikes, electricity operator states. Isn't that wonderful? And then there was also a report coming out saying how groceries are 29% higher since before. Not sure about you guys, but 29% actually seems a little low. Hey, maybe I need to stop buying the organic eggs and start to consider possibly eating the bugs. Also today, we saw plans from China to mass produce flying cars in 2026. The future. Now, finally, this one right here is really just disrespectful to the American people who are struggling with the groceries, with gas, with the bills, right? Just struggling to get by with the inflation. Well, instead of getting some help, it looks like Argentina is going to get some help from the federal government, where Mr. Golden Dawn and his administration to give massive sum of $40 billion in foreign aid to Argentina. I'm sure it's money well spent. So there you guys go, your little news recap for the day.
Kevin Bardsley and his 12-year-old son Garrett went on a father-son Boy Scout camping trip in the Uinta Mountains in northern Utah. Their campsite was situated next to Lake Quibrant inside of the Wasatch National Forest. The lake was actually pretty remote and difficult to access because it was almost completely surrounded by huge mountains. The only side you could get to the lake on was its western side, but the western trail leading to it was very cumbersome because you had to bypass 7 different lakes. Early in the morning on August 20th, Kevin and Garrett woke up, they hopped out of their tents, and so they decided they would head down to the lake to get some early fishing in. As they get there, the sun's coming up over the mountains, and they're really excited about their day of fishing. Garrett was jumping around on different stones that were poking out of the water, and at some point he tripped and he fell into the water, soaking his shoes and his pants. And so he hopped out of the water and he's kind of laughing at himself. Garrett said to his dad, "This is actually pretty uncomfortable. I'm gonna go change my pants and my socks." And so Kevin said, "No problem." And so Garrett starts walking back up towards the campsite, and Kevin actually turned around and watched his son disappear into the trees, but he heard the sound of other campers at the campsite, and so knew his son wouldn't be alone. For the next couple of minutes, Kevin kept fishing, but periodically would look over his shoulder, expecting to see Garrett come out of the woods again, but he didn't. Kevin was a little bit concerned, so he picked up his fishing gear and began walking back up the trail towards the camp. When he got there, he saw other Boy Scouts and their fathers, and he's standing around the campsite, and he doesn't see Garrett. And so Kevin asked one of the fathers, "Hey, have you seen Garrett? He was supposed to be up here a minute ago." And the father said, "No, I haven't seen him." And so horrified, Kevin drops all of his gear and starts running back towards the lake, screaming for his son, and the other campers instinctively know what's going on, and so they chase after him, yelling for Garrett. Almost immediately, the sheriff's department was notified, and they launched this huge search that included the FBI, and so hundreds of people have descended into the area around the lake, and they're looking for Garrett. They can't find him, but later that afternoon, searchers were about a half mile away from where Garrett was last seen, and they found a single Nike sock that appeared to have been removed from a wet foot, wedged into one of the boulders in this huge boulder field. Garrett's mother would confirm that was Garrett's sock, and so the search effort was shifted to this big boulder field, and for days they looked all over the place for him, but there was no sign of Garrett anywhere, and so eventually the search was terminated. What their theory was is Garrett must have gotten lost on the walk back to the camp, and then ultimately died of exposure. But the idea that a boy of Garrett's age would get lost along a well-defined 150-meter long trail that he was familiar with, that seems a little far-fetched. Also, as Garrett was walking down that trail, he would have heard the sounds of the other campers in the campsite, so that would have helped him figure out exactly where he needed to go. So something happened to Garrett almost immediately when he left his father that caused him to wind up a half mile away in a boulder field with one sock missing. It screams abduction case. But remember, this campsite was over an hour's hike away from the nearest civilization, and they know this group of Boy Scouts and their fathers were the only ones in the area that day.
I've seen 2 videos in the last 24 hours of ICE agents intentionally ramming their cars into the vehicles of US citizens. We've become so desensitized to these images of ICE terrorizing our community members that we forget that this is blatantly illegal. So as an attorney, let me remind you all the ways that this violates the law. First of all, and most problematically, using your car as a weapon is the use of lethal force. That is only a protected action under the law if someone's life is in immediate danger. In this man's case, he was only targeted by ICE because he was exercising his First Amendment right of following them and filming their activities in his community. That's not a danger to anyone's life. In both these cases, ICE also detained both of these men, even though they had proof of their citizenship, which is an unlawful detainment. We also know that ICE has been incredibly wasteful with our tax dollars, but it's about to get a lot worse because this guy is almost certainly about to get a civil attorney and win millions of dollars in a lawsuit. He was injured by law enforcement officers that were intentionally and blatantly violating his rights. It doesn't get more black and white than that. And ICE is doing this across the country. I don't know what the training for these officers is, but it feels like they're told to target whoever they want with as much force as they feel like using. The government's gonna end up paying for it in court, but more seriously, innocent people will pay for it with their lives.
What if I told you Romania is planning to tax people who make jam, marmalade, or pickles at home? On paper, it sounds small. Just register if you sell. But when every purchase runs through a digital ID and bank account, the system can flag unusual patterns. If you buy more sugar than normal, the algorithm knows. This isn't about jam. It's about sovereignty. Generations survived by preserving food outside the market system. Now even tradition is being pulled into the taxable, trackable grid. So the real question isn't about pickles. It's about freedom. When every jar in your kitchen becomes a data point, what's left that belongs only to you?
So Republicans control the House, the Senate, and the White House.
Yes, we were very popular.
But you're blaming Democrats for the shutdown.
Of course. They're refusing to negotiate.
Aren't Democrats showing up in the House and the Senate every day asking to negotiate?
Yeah, but that's a waste of time because the House is in recess.
Right, because Republican Speaker Mike Johnson sent everyone off on vacation so they wouldn't be here to negotiate during the shutdown.
Yeah, it's a strategy.
Healthcare premiums are going to skyrocket next year without the ACA tax credits, right?
Oh, yeah. But I mean, let's just pass a clean budget for now, and we all want to fix the broken healthcare system later.
So you want to extend the ACA tax credits so that families don't have to pay a whole lot more for their health insurance?
No, government spending is wasteful. We want to fix the healthcare system.
So you want to regulate insurance companies so they can't charge astronomical prices?
No, regulations stifle innovation. We want to empower insurance organizations to provide more options.
So when health insurance companies use AI to wrongly deny care, is that the innovation you want?
Yeah, CEOs are beholden to shareholders. Increasing the company's profits is their fiduciary responsibility, silly.
So your idea of fixing this is higher healthcare costs for middle-class families and giving insurance companies more ways to rip off people, right?
Let's just increase the premiums for now. And we all want to fix, it's a very broken system and we'll do it later.
Make it make sense.
There are 535 members of Congress. That's 100 senators and 435 representatives. Add the president, the vice president, and the 9 Supreme Court justices, and you get 546 people who run the federal government. That's it. 546. Now compare that to us, 336 million Americans, about 168 million registered voters, over 160 million workers who keep the lights on and the country moving. That means for every one member of Congress, there are over 600,000 of us. That's a whole city for every seat in Washington. And yet somehow we've been convinced that we're the powerless ones. We scroll, we sigh, we say it's too late, there's nothing we can do. But here's the truth. Power never disappears. It just moves to whoever shows up. Democracy has never survived because of the few in the marble halls. They're voted in and out. Democracy survives because of the many at their kitchen tables who can never be voted out. Us. It survives because of people who still love this country enough to argue for it, vote for it, and stand guard over it. The founders didn't build a system where power trickles down. They built one where it surges up, from the governed to the government. We are the ones who give the government power, not the other way around. And when we forget that, we hand the keys to those who profit off our silence. We are the inheritance of every soldier who fought for freedom, every marcher who faced a government that made them bleed to keep them from feeling their power, every suffragist who went to jail so that the ballot box would belong to everyone. They didn't fight so that we could shrug and scroll. They fought so that we could choose and keep choosing. So the next time you feel like your voice doesn't matter, remember this: there will always be more of us than there are of them. We outnumber the powerful 600,000 to 1. Our breathing drowns out their voice. We outvote them, outwork them, and outlove this country 1,000 times over. Democracy doesn't die when the powerful forget who they serve. It dies when the people forget who they are. But that's not today, not on our watch, not while there are still more of us willing to stand and speak out and prove that we the people still means all of us.
We should not have illegal people in our country being able to vote, getting CDL driver's license. I mean, that's nonsensical to me.
Last week, Vivek Sharma went to the DMV to renew his trucking license, but he was denied. The problem? New rules surrounding the process. What? As he explains in Hindi, only green card holders and U.S. citizens can get their commercial driver's license renewed. Sharma's been in the U.S. legally for the past 10 years, seeking political asylum. His final court case is next year. Driving a truck for the...
I want y'all to pay attention to what he just said. First of all, he cannot speak English very well at all. Then he said he came to America seeking asylum, and his court hearing is in a few months, or whatever the case may be. This is what they do. They sneak into our country, or they come here on the premise of seeking asylum. There's no real asylum claim. And our immigration system is so broken that they let these people live in here for 5 or 6 years before they have a hearing. Then by the time they get to the hearing, there's no real asylum claim. But they've been living here in our country 5 or 6 years, taking American tax dollars for their benefit, getting jobs that American citizens should have, and then what? They don't show up to court.
I saw all those clips from those Republicans, and I will tell you, Ben, just to be 100% clear for everybody here, I did not pay one dime to any Republican to publicize the No Kings protest. They're talking about it all by themselves because they're scared. They are scared of mass, peaceful people power. And this is true in any authoritarian regime around the world. This is the one thing that's an actual threat because authoritarian regimes depend on people feeling alone and feeling isolated.
Listen to me, I do not care who this makes mad. I have friends on both sides of the aisle. But are we really going to tolerate what's going on here right now? I don't want to hear how it's part of the plan. I'm sick and tired. Gas is still high. Eggs are still high. Rent is still enormous. Wages are still down. National Guard is still in our cities. You can sit there and pretend like all of this is okay, but I'm doing it. We can agree to disagree on that because at the end of the day, we're American citizens who get the right to say no. I am not okay with the Guard and all this bullshit going on in Memphis. The governor bold-faced lied and got caught about how many arrests have been made in Memphis. If you go to the MPD website, it's right there, plain as day. He lied. And there's way more that got lied about than that. I'm telling you, I've been researching this for 2 straight days. Y'all can keep putting on up with this bullshit over here if you want to. They're secretly making arrests. It'll be too shocking for the public. I don't think that's possible right now. But hey, I love you guys. Use your discernment. Oh, and Elon Musk's supercomputers are still poisoning the people in Memphis. Bye.
Donald Trump says that he's not going to heaven and he doesn't think that there's anything that can get him into heaven. Take a listen.
A couple weeks ago, you were doing an interview and you talked about how you hope to end the war in Ukraine because it might help you get into heaven. How does this help? Does this help?
I mean, I'm being a little cute. I don't think there's anything going to get me in heaven. Okay, I think I'm not maybe heaven bound. I may be in heaven right now as we fly an Air Force One. I'm not sure I'm going to be able to make heaven. But I've made life a lot better for a lot of people. And, as an
But the thing is, God tells you exactly how to get into heaven. The Bible tells you exactly how to get into heaven. You believe in Jesus Christ. John 3:16 is a very simple principle, right? Or wrong. It's one thing to work out your salvation with fear and trembling, but it's another thing to write yourself off and then just suspend the idea of nothing being able to get you into heaven when Jesus can get you into heaven. He's the only mediator between us and God. Jesus is what gets us into heaven. So for him to say that there's nothing that can get him into heaven shows me that he does not believe that Jesus is his Lord and Savior. Very simple principle. I might be inclined to say, oh, maybe I don't deserve to go to heaven. However, I know if I trust in Jesus, I know that I will be there, even if it's by the skin of my teeth. But to just say that, oh, there's no way I can get there, shows that there has to be something in the background. Only way I would say that is if I had some major skeletons in my closet. I just know that God knows. And I say major, I mean major, because everybody obviously doesn't deserve to go to heaven. No one does, right? That's why Jesus had to come. But the only way I would say that is if I had major skeletons in my closet. That's all I'm gonna say. What a crazy statement by our Christian president. And for you MAGA Christians out there, please do not come with the whole, oh, he's just being humble. That's not a Christian response. And it's not a humble response either.
Okay, speaking of royals, Prince Andrew is giving up his title. I'm going to read you the statement. This just came out about an hour ago. This announcement has come out after the release of excerpts from a posthumous memoir by Jeffrey Epstein accuser Virginia Roberts Guffrey. I'm not positive I'm saying that correctly, but she had repeatedly claimed that she was trafficked by Epstein to Prince Andrew. Now, his statement says, in discussion with the king and my immediate and wider family, we have concluded the continued accusations about me distract from the work of His Majesty and the royal family. I have decided, as I always have, to put my duty to my family and country first. I stand by my decisions 5 years ago to stand back from public life. Now, he goes on to say, with His Majesty's agreement, we feel I must now go a step further. I will therefore no longer use my title or the honors which have been conferred upon me. As I have said previously, I vigorously deny the accusations against me. I believe his wife is even giving up her title. So yeah, it does say his wife is also going to give up her title, which is Duchess of York. Virginia's family is speaking out, and they're asking for King Charles to take it a step further. I'm going to read you what they said. We, the family of Virginia Roberts Gifford, believe that Prince Andrew's decision to give up his titles is vindication for our sister and survivors everywhere. The decisive action is a powerful step forward in our fight to bring Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell trafficking network to justice. Further, we believe it is appropriate for King Charles to remove the title of Prince. You guys, the book hasn't even come out yet. The book comes out in a few days on October 21st.
I wanted to ask you about this thing with YouTube paying Donald Trump. Yeah, they paid him, I think, $24.5 million as compensation for banning him in 2021. They have pledged to get rid of third-party fact-checking and move towards an X-style community notes. They have pledged to start a pilot program to allow banned accounts who question COVID-19 or the 2020 election to come back on the platform. That is not up yet, but they've said they're going to be starting it soon. And they have blamed the Biden administration for these censorship actions. They said they told us to do it and we shouldn't have complied. It's sort of like what Zuckerberg said. But I think Zuckerberg didn't want to do it, whereas Google did it willingly, joyfully.
Why is there so much tax taken out of my paycheck if the government ain't even there? Because Argentina need $40 billion? Well, don't cry for me, Argentina. Delivery for Donald? Yeah, that's for me. Aren't you an air traffic controller? Yeah, but we're not working, so I need a second job. Meanwhile, this billionaire's laughing all the way to the crypto bank. Excuse me, my net worth is only up $4 billion since I became president. Speaking of being awful, these leaked group texts are not good. Yeah, well, we stand by them. You say every abhorrent, racist, sexist, prejudice thing possible. And we're the future of the Republican Party. Ah, we're in good hands. What is that? I was awarded the Even Nobelier Peace Prize. By who? Me?
Very well deserved.
Oh, it's Glitch. Are you gonna help stop this government shutdown? Oh my God. Don't worry, I've got him. He's alive. He just fell. You're kidding me. This is like the 9th time I've come here for this guy. The rule, the media can only report good things about the Department of War. They're all agreeing not to do that. Then they're banned from all 4 corners of the Pentagon. Yep. This Time magazine cover is the worst picture of all time. It is of you. They made me look bald. I think the issue is the nussy. The what? Your neck? Cut that out or he'll get autism. How much of your brain did the worm not eat? And I'm gonna build an Arc de Trump. What, like an Arc de Triomphe? The exact same, just ironically with no eye.
To be outside performing podium every day. And they expect us to silence now. It's an order. Nigerian government came out openly and denied there's no massacre. There's no genocide of Christians in Nigeria. And look at it today. Is there any Muslim here? United Nations, I know you're watching it. American Senate, you are watching what I'm doing. I'm saying here. Special advisor to Trump. Now, please take Trump to save our life in Nigeria. They are killing Christians in Nigeria. Massacre Christians. If they say they kill Muslims, these Muslims are being killed. By who? By Muslims.